Almost exactly 40 years ago, or on January the 16th, 1979, following a rather turbulent and increasingly autocratic rule that had started with his father's abdication in 1941, and which had culminated then in increasingly loud and threatening, even violent protests that had begun during 1978, the Shah, or Emperor of Iran, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, and his family members were forced to flee from Iran on January the 16th, 1979. This was a major blow to the major Western countries, such as the United States, because for all his autocratic rule in Iran itself, and for all his criticism of the excessive oil consumption of the United States, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi had nevertheless been considered a major US ally or supporter or friend of sorts anyway in the Middle East. He was then replaced by the Islamic Republic of Iran, with the first supreme leader being Ayatollah Khomeini. So he was the ruler of the last Shah of Iran from September 1941, and his rule virtually ended when he left Iran in January 1979, although the Iranian Revolution did not officially overthrow him until February the 11th, 1979. He had taken the title Shah an Shah, King of Kings, in October 1967. His dream of what he referred to as a great civilization, or Tamadon-e Bozorg, in Iran led to a rapid industrial and military modernization, as well as economic and social reforms. However, since the 1960s, he governed increasingly autocratically, and he suppressed political dissent by Iran's intelligence agency, Savak. He also favored, although he was a Muslim personally, he favored the separation of religion and state, or laïcité. He came into conflict with the traditional class of merchants, known as the Bazari. He decided to have relations with Israel, which made him unpopular in many Arab countries. And then, unfortunately, there was corruption surrounding himself, his family, and the ruling elite. He nationalized certain industries, and he granted women many more rights than they would have had under a traditional Muslim regime. Facing likely execution should he return to Iran, he then hopped from one country to another. First, he flew to Aswan, Egypt, where he was warmly and graciously welcomed by the just about equally autocratic President Anwar el-Sadat. He later lived in Marrakesh, Morocco, as a guest of King Hassan II. Then he lived in Paradise Island in the Bahamas and in Cuernavaca, Mexico. Former disgraced US President Richard Nixon visited the Shah in summer 1979 in Mexico. The Shah suffered from gallstones that would require prompt surgery. He was offered treatment in Switzerland, but insisted on being treated in the United States. Sorry. US President Jimmy Carter did not wish to admit the controversial former Shah to the United States, but was pressured by many quarters, with former US Secretary of State or Foreign Minister Henry Kissinger phoning Carter to say he would not endorse the SALT II treaty with the Soviet Union that Carter had just signed, with the Soviet Union unless the former Shah was allowed into the United States. Carter was anxious to have the endorsement of a Republican elder statesman like Kissinger to fend off the criticism of his SALT Second Treaty as a giveaway to the Soviets. And then he reluctantly allowed the Shah into the United States. The Mexican doctors had misdiagnosed his illness as malaria. Instead, it was cancer, giving him a regime of anti-malarial drugs that did nothing to treat his cancer, and then they caused his health to go into rapid decline as he lost 30 pounds. On October the 22nd, 1979, President Carter reluctantly allowed the Shah into the United States to undergo surgical treatment at the New York Hospital Cornell Medical Center. The former Shah used the fake name David D. Newsom. Surgical complications did ensue, which required 6 weeks of confinement in the hospital before he recovered. The revolutionary movement was extremely angry in Iran at the former Shah's stay in the United States despite his life-threatening cancer. And then on November the 4th, 1979, a group of radical Iranian Muslims stormed the U.S. embassy, taking its personnel hostage. And this Iranian hostage crisis would not be solved until the inauguration of the next president, Ronald Reagan, in January 1981. Some people even claim that had Carter refused to allow the former Shah into the United States, he just might have won re-election narrowly. Or had he managed to bring the American hostages to the United States before the November 1980 presidential elections, for all his failures at home and abroad, he might just have won re-election narrowly. And then this would have meant that Ronald Reagan would at the earliest have become US president in 1985. Anyway, on December the 15th, 1979, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi left the United States, living for a short time in the Isla Contadora in Panama. This caused riots by Panamanians. The only consolation for Mohammad Reza during his time were letters from his second wife, Princess Soraya, saying that she still loved him and wanted to see him one last time before he died. After that event, the Shah again sought the support of Egyptian President El Sadat, who renewed his offer of permanent asylum in Egypt to the ailing monarch. In March 1980, he did return to Egypt. There he received urgent medical treatment. And on March the 28th, 1980, several months before it should have been undertaken or carried out, the former Shah's French and American doctors finally performed an operation meant to have been performed in the fall of 1979. The operation did go beautifully. However, the cancer had hit his liver and the Shah would die. The medical team, which included Americans, Egyptians, and French, was in the pathology lab, and the Shah's cancerous spleen was grotesquely swollen to 20 times normal. It was 1 foot long, literally the size of a football. Soraya, his former wife, quietly visited Mohammad Reza on his deathbed without the Shah's third and final wife, Farah Diba, present. Or it was arranged, but however, the two were star-crossed lovers, and Mohammad Reza died, unfortunately, before Soraya could come to Egypt from her home in Paris. And Mohammad Reza died from complications of Waldenström's macroglobulinemia on July the 27th, 1980, aged 60. Egyptian President Anwar Sadat, who will be assassinated in a military parade in October 1981, so just 1 year and 3 months later, gave the Shah a state funeral. He is buried in the Al-Rifai Mosque in Cairo, a mosque of great symbolic importance. Also buried there is Farouk of Egypt, Mohammad Reza's former brother-in-law.